Regressor of the Fallen Family, Chapter 12. Verification is complete. Welcome to Harun. Harun, the central estate reached by Kale through 2 days of horse riding. This place had thick double-layered gates in its outer walls, standing several tens of meters apart from each other. As a result, unlike when he first entered Kyle, Logan had to go through a double check despite showing his identity plaque. There were legitimate reasons for Harun's strict vigilance. Buzzing noises filled the air. A sea of people surged into view as soon as the inner gate opened. The bustling crowd was complex and peculiar in a different way than Kyle, especially since a significant number of them wore shackles on their limbs. "Move it, you lot! Don't dawdle!" Crack! Slaves scattered about, overseer guards wielding whips, and in between them strode individuals with formidable statures and grim expressions, armed with weapons. Although this was a starkly different sight from a typical estate, it was an all-too-natural scene here. Indeed. Although it was his first visit in his current life, for Logan, this scene was all too familiar. Harun was the royal city directly managing the agriculture of the Grandia Plains, the largest granary in the central region. Originally just an agricultural estate, it gradually earned more peculiar nicknames as slaves to work the vast plains, and mercenaries supervising them continued to pour in beyond its initial intent. A city of slaves and mercenaries, or the human market. I first started my mercenary work here in a previous life. While the landscape of Harun was nostalgically fresh for Logan, much like in Kyle, he had many tasks ahead rather than reminiscing about his past life. Firstly, the top priority was to find a craftsman capable of making the weapon he had used in his past life. But even before that, I need to find an instructor, no, a guard now. The slave market in the city was a dangerous place to venture into alone. Even with Logan's confidence in his own strength, he could unexpectedly get struck from behind. To avoid such nuisances, he needed a guard who could ease that burden. An instructor as well as a guard. Just the right person comes to mind, but is he here now? Logan's steps, filled with the memories of his past life, led him down the streets he had trodden countless times before. Click. Hey, watch where you're going. What did you say? A street where those carrying swords or weapons greatly outnumbered the unarmed. 2 burly men collided shoulders and glared at each other. Watch them eyes. You best watch your own back. But after a brief exchange of intimidating words, they turned away, avoiding the flash of dangerous stares from around them. In Harun's second famous street, Mercenary Street, there was one unwritten rule. The first to draw a weapon gets lynched. Simple but effective, this rule maintained the law and order of this dangerous street. Amidst the unruly yet liberating atmosphere, Logan was drawn to a place where buildings adorned with swords and shields were clustered. The largest mercenary guild in the Grandia Kingdom, the Harun branch of Tainan. At a glance, the large first floor looked more than 100 pyong and mainder, approx 330 mariers, bustling with noise loud enough to render the bell at the door pointless. A guild building crowded with people. Hard to believe it was only one of 3 branches. Here's a mission to the southern region. First come, first served for the rank B escort mission to the Empire. Got any missions heading east? Among the mission boards filled with various requests, the clients in a hurry vocalized theirs, and dozens of mercenaries gathered in front. Fortunately, Logan spotted his target among them. Bingo. It seemed luck was on his side today. He found his recruitment target in the 3rd guild building. Had the target been away on a far-off mission, he might have considered looking for another mercenary. Luckily, he had found the foremost on his recruitment list. Kai, a gray-haired mercenary, engaged in idle chat with a guild staffer at the counter. He looked younger than Logan remembered, but the square, stoic face and formidable build were unmistakable. The emerald eyes and the scar on his cheek remained just as Logan had seen in his past life. Still the same. No, this was his prime indeed. Though Kai was only a rank A mercenary because he hadn't awakened his force, his weapon skills and combat prowess were masterful enough for even knights to fall prey if they were careless. His skill with a variety of weapons, including bows and spears, was second to none, earning him the title of one of the strongest rank A mercenaries. Furthermore, Kai was in his mid-40s, an experienced mercenary with excellent riding skills. But his true value arises when he becomes an instructor, rather than a mercenary now. In just about a year from now, after sustaining a serious injury and retiring from active duty, he would form his own mercenary group. The mercenaries he trained would boast superior skills compared to their peers, embedding the name Kai's mercenary group in the mercenary world. Logan of the past life had collaborated with them on several occasions, experiencing their prowess firsthand. To a man, they attributed their skills to the leader and instructor of the mercenary group, praising Kai's teaching abilities. However, it was said he preferred fighting over teaching before retiring due to his injury. I'll have to pay a bit more then. Regardless, he fit perfectly into the image of the mercenary group Logan envisioned. Kai Solan? Kai looked blankly at the young noble who suddenly addressed him. Not until he verified the crest on Logan's armor did he cautiously respond. Yes, but what of it? I want to employ you long term. This young noble seemed to be just another privileged young lord, but at least his intentions would be clear within the mercenary guild, preventing fraud. Kai's eyes shifted to a gaze of interest as he looked back at Logan. Oh, a long-term contract? Interesting. So how much are you thinking? A minimum of 1 year. Oh, that's good. Then what would my duties be? I'd like you to take charge of training and educating the C-rank mercenaries we'll additionally hire. Training and educating? Are you addressing me? Kai was baffled. The fancy noble lad had sought him out, an expensive rank of mercenary, only to ask him to be an instructor? A request he had never received before left him with no choice but to heave a sigh. I'm sorry, but I'm not sure what you've heard about me. I've never specifically trained anyone before. I heard you're quite adept at instructing your comrades when necessary. Who told you that? Humph. I have given some advice to young ones, thinking it might help us on missions, but that's all. Nothing formal. So, are you turning it down? Not that I'm refusing, it's just that I've never been an instructor before. It was a roundabout way of declining, but Logan's reply differed from his expectations. I'll pay you 4,000 gold a month. At those words, Kai Solan's eyes flickered slightly. The maximum usual salary for an A-rank mercenary was about 2,000 gold per month. The young noble suddenly offered him double. Let me reiterate, I've never worked as an instructor before. 6,000 gold per month. I'm more accustomed to combat missions. Money can summon even ghosts, sure, but 8,000 gold, that's the most I can offer, no more. With the price quadrupled at once, Kai Solan momentarily mumbled, unable to respond, but soon he laughed heartily and extended his hand. Haha, warriors over ghosts, I'd say. I am Kai Solan. Just call me Kai, employer. So what do you do? The young noble, or rather the god of wealth, smiled and grasped his hand. Upon learning that Logan was not preparing for some war as the child of a border count, but was actually the eldest son of the McLean baronet family, Kai was momentarily astonished. Nevertheless, this fact caused no hindrance to their contract. Aren't you curious why someone from the remote McLean estate is hiring mercenaries? As long as payment is assured, I see no reason to be interested, employer. You sure have a clear mind. Why wouldn't I? Though Kai answered confidently, his expression turned curious when he learned of Logan's next destination. The slave market, mercenaries, and slaves. The purpose of the journey from the McLean estate to Haroun seemed transparent enough, but the reason for a noble's heir to do such a thing remained an unfathomable mystery. Nevertheless, staying true to his principle, Kai did not ask, and Logan felt no need to explain. That's right. Stay vigilant for any trouble that might arise. That won't be an issue. There's hardly anyone around who wouldn't recognize me here. Logan gave another look of appreciation to Kai, reaffirming his initial thoughts. Although not exceptionally tall for a mercenary, standing around 180 centimeters, his muscular physique without any sign of fat, his facial scar, and various weapons adorned all over his body, presented an imposing figure. Depending on their knowledge, people would either avoid him or want nothing to do with him. A perfect impression for a guard in a market trading people, where human troubles were always the issue. Welcome. What kind of slave are you looking to purchase? If you tell us your requirements. Over here, young lord, come take a look. We supply slaves cheaper than anywhere. The main street of Haroun. Large tents with wide-open entrances stretched along both sides of the thoroughfare, each containing slaves with ragged and dirty clothing, lined up under the watchful eyes of mercenaries. The first landmark of Haroun, the slave market. Though not officially sanctioned, the tents started multiplying at some point with the tacit approval of the estate's authorities. Eventually, it grew into the largest human market in the Grandia Kingdom, becoming such common sense to visit Haroun's slave market to buy slaves that it became a widely accepted standard, and with that comes daily problems. The captured descendants of defeated enemies, or serious criminals, refugees caught after fleeing taxes or labor, or those mired in unsolvable debt. Each had various backgrounds and dark gazes, which Logan encountered rapidly as he moved along. I don't think I'll ever get used to this. He had seen too many former citizens turn to slavery after the downfall of the kingdom in a past life. To Logan, both the supervisors and the slaves seemed no different, equally pitiable. Regardless of his turbulent thoughts, the bustling crowd parted like a lie whenever he took a step. All thanks to Kai trailing right behind him. Even groups of thugs who initially approached with ill intent thinking Logan was a naive youngster quickly made a wide berth upon noticing his follower. Logan's annoyance was greatly lessened, and with a satisfied smile, he arrived without trouble at his intended destination, a small red tent with a closed entrance. These sorts of modest-sized tents were often seen in the corners of the slave market. Despite their small size, they were typically guarded by more escorts and mercenaries than the larger tents. In front of such a tent, a middle-aged man escorted by mercenaries casually spoke up. "Young lord, do you know where you have come to?" "I've come for a dwarf. Open up." "Ah, you know your business well. Racial slaves are precious. That's why we have special management. This way, please come inside." At Logan's words, the slave trader shifted his demeanor and the red tent parted. Inside, encased behind sturdy iron bars, Logan could see slaves with traits slightly different from the rest. The first to catch his eye was a pair of pointed-eared beauties, whose attire could not dim their radiance. Despite their lifeless eyes suggesting surrender, they were seated powerlessly, yet remained a vision of beauty. These elves were difficult to acquire. Have you seen elves elsewhere? As for these? These were elves, known to retain their youth for centuries, with virtually every individual surpassing the standard of human beauty, ensuring that they consistently ranked first amongst the preferences of slave purchasers. Even Logan of his past life had caught only a few glimpses of the beautiful racial individuals. Even Kai, who had spent a long time in this place, seemed entranced, having seen elves infrequently, uttering impressed exclamations. The old man kept smiling and elaborating, but the actual buyer showed no interest. "Enough, bring out that slave there." Instead, Logan indicated a short and stocky slave nearby. "Ah, yes, you did mention a dwarf, of course. We'll have him brought out." The young man showed no response, even with elven beauties in front of him, prompting the old man to grimace and signal the mercenaries. Observing him, Logan snickered internally. "Sorry, old man, but impulse buys are a no-go, especially for mere ornaments." While elves were indeed highly sought after, it was mostly due to their appearance. There was no reason for Logan, currently preoccupied with war, to pay them any attention. Logan had, in fact, much greater value placed on the dwarf slave who, by contrast, seemed even uglier next to them. Damn it. The dwarven slave, only reaching up to a human's waist, showed a surly attitude to the mercenaries trying to lift him, despite being shackled with chains as thick as his limbs seemed stubborn. "See for yourself the true dwarf appearance. He will be quite useful to you. Among the dwarven craftsmen, this one is a rare master-level artisan, strong and enduring." A master level? Logan's eyes widened instinctively. The old man wasn't lying. The dwarves were a race born with a knack for delicate craftsmanship, unfit for their thick fingers. From young to old age, they found meaning in life through crafting and perfecting artisanship. And among them, a master level yet. Logan's need for a craftsman was surpassed by his expectations. "Got it, how much?" Interrupting the explanation, Logan was direct in his questioning, prompting the old man to hesitantly hold up 2 fingers. "Ha, for a master level you must give at least 200. Do I look like a fool?" Logan turned and walked away without hesitation upon hearing the old man's reply. At those words, Logan turned around without hesitation. No matter how valuable a slave from another race might be, a price several hundred times that of a robust slave was unlikely unless someone was making light of him. Moreover, dwarf slaves, despite their notoriety as artisanal races, had a fatal flaw. "Red tents aren't the only ones around here. Wait just a moment, please, my lord." The slave trader hastily called Logan back and began to bargain. The deal was finally sealed only after the price of the dwarf had been lowered to 50,000 gold. "Humans! They are truly relentless," the dwarf muttered, observing the actions of the slave trader, who seemed to be adding insult to injury, a manner of speaking quite uncharacteristic for a slave. However, Logan did not react unpleasantly to his words, but simply shrugged his shoulders. Well, it's basic, isn't it? Making a dwarf slave speak politely seemed less of a hassle than killing him. They were a race that became more defiant under oppression, making them difficult to manage as slaves. Despite physical confinement, their desire to maintain their pride through their words was a well-known fact across the continent about this fading race. Where am I to go now? You'll be going to the McLean territory in the southwest, and there you will make what I have requested. Is that so? A shadow of gloom passed through the dwarf's eyes. Most people who sought to buy dwarves, a race of artisans, wanted the same thing. However, very few owners were completely satisfied with the works created by dwarves forced into slavery. No matter how skilled the race, products crafted without passion could never be true masterpieces. Nonetheless, even considering this, their superior craftsmanship compared to human blacksmiths meant they were sold at higher prices. Moreover, the difference in outcomes due to the absence of motivation was particularly pronounced in Hammer, the dwarf now sold to Logan. At times, Hammer, a high-grade artisan dwarf, could perform poorer than human blacksmiths. He was fortunate he hadn't been killed by his previous owner in anger, but was instead resold. I don't wish to die either. Motivation was not something that could be controlled at will, yet the new owner made a proposition that could potentially change that, his eyes shining with the suggestion. 20 years. If you dedicate yourself to making items for me for the next 20 years, I am willing to let you return to the mountains. At this, Hammer's eyes wavered significantly. Chapter 13. The willingness to return to the mountains. That statement implied that he was willing to let the dwarf follow in the footsteps of the Hammer clan, which had vanished beyond the massive mountain range that stretched across the southern part of the continent. To the dwarf, a half-elf who typically lived for 300 years, 20 years, to gain freedom, did not seem like a particularly long time. Humans are good at lying. Do you think I can trust those words? However, the dwarf's distrust of humans was profound, and the look of resignation in his eyes did not waver. It was then that Logan gently pulled out a piece of paper shimmering with bluish energy from within his clothes. Do you know what this is? The dwarf's eyes trembled upon verifying the item. A magic contract? It was a spare he had prepared when buying a magic contract to bind Philip, thinking of this very day. You're not going to use that for me, are you? Well observed. If you really cannot trust me, then I could draft a contract for you. Let's write the contract, absolutely. I'll make anything for you. Logan's lips curved into a faint smile at the radically changed attitude of Hammer. Without delay, he proceeded to draft the contract for the enthusiastic dwarf. To Logan, it was merely bait to ensure his eagerness. However, upon seeing the light of the magic contract enveloping both him and Logan, Hammer, contrary to his usual stoic countenance, let tears roll down his cheeks. I can't believe you would actually do that for me. Thank you, human. No, thank you, master. It was a strange sight to see someone destined to 20 years of forced labor, expressing gratitude and even using honorifics, difficult for a dwarf. Logan couldn't help but chuckle at the odd disconnection. If a single contract can inspire such motivation, then it's a profitable deal. The weapon he intended to create required only a slight edge over the skills of a human blacksmith, which was within reach even with a disillusioned dwarf's ability. However, Logan's promise of freedom was influenced perhaps by memories from his past life. 1,000 years ago, during the Great Migration, most dwarves also vanished beyond the southern mountain range. Consequently, master dwarves, who were rumored to be found only in the great cities of the dwarves, became even rarer, and those master dwarves, once enslaved, could no longer display skills that matched their reputation. But Logan had once witnessed, in his past life, the true capabilities of a master dwarf in a piece crafted with the joy of liberation. The craftsmanship of a master dwarf infused with genuine willpower. It truly was impressive. Such skill was worth the investment if he could draw it forth. For Logan's plans, 20 years was more than enough time, unless it all falls apart before then. Shaking off those ominous thoughts, Logan turned his gaze from Hammer, who now looked elated, to Kai, whose expressionless face kept vigilance behind him. Anyway, I've achieved my purpose of coming to Harun. A contented smirk appeared on Logan's lips as he moved forward with a lighter heart, reassured by the smooth unfolding of the plan. But the relief was fleeting. As they were leaving the slave market, Logan and his party encountered a raucous incident. Seize him! The slave has escaped! Catch him! Catch them, you fools! A middle-aged man with a hooked nose and blood streaming down his forearms pointed at a spot in the slave market and bellowed loudly. A blue-haired boy carrying a girl who resembled him was rushing through the crowded people with 5 or 6 individuals who looked like mercenaries in pursuit. The boy, with his surprisingly nimble movements, unsuited for his emaciated frame, managed to escape the mercenaries' grip time after time. However, the chase was not to last. Thud! Thud! You damn dog! Thump! You think you can bite me? Crud. Angered beyond reason, the hook-nosed man mercilessly trampled the child. Even as he spat out his fury, it seemed he wouldn't care if the child died from his violent kicks. The blue-haired boy's unyielding posture during the onslaught, if anything, only intensified the man's rage as time went on. His sister? Biting his lip until it bled, the boy stubbornly resisted, bending his outstretched arms and legs, a clear indication that he was protecting his sister from the kicks. "Oh, brother, I'm okay." Trembling, the girl whispered, clutching at the boy's arms, a soft voice only Logan could hear if he concentrated, but it was unlikely the boy above had missed. "Don't worry about the slaves, just move along." I know, but just one moment. In the eyes of the world, slaves were not humans, but property. How their owner treated them was not a matter for others to interfere with, even if that treatment was as abhorrent as what they witnessed. Moreover, the mercenaries who caught the boy were glancing around, poised and ready for any interference. There was no reason to risk an altercation over someone else's property, yet Logan couldn't take his eyes off the beaten boy. Why? It wasn't just out of sympathy for the boy. The contrasting red and blue eyes beneath the blue hair, an odd eye, were a rarity, perhaps even unique on the continent, and that teased a part of his memory. Blue hair, red and blue odd-eye slave. He was sure it was important, but the clear answer eluded him, leaving him with a feeling of frustration. Then, as his gaze fleetingly met with the boy's eyes, a long-forgotten memory flashed through Logan's mind. "Ah, Victor!" "Yes?" "No, nothing. Just wait a moment." The memories that surfaced brought a strange pleasure, but they also laid before Logan yet another concern. To think I'd encounter the noble slayer here. Looking at the boy, now suspected of being Victor, his eyes narrowed. Victor, the noble slayer, a powerful aura user who gained tremendous fame in the kingdom in Logan's previous life. His notoriety was particularly due to his origins. Born not from nobility or even commoners, Victor was a slave, and a runaway slave who killed his master at that. This uneducated combatant laid waste to his pursuers and eventually became a fugitive, guilty of slaughtering numerous soldiers, knights, and nobles before vanishing. Nearly a decade later, around the time the Imperial War began, Victor resurfaced, slaughtering the entire family of his previous owners with the use of aura, a sign of a superhuman. Thereafter, he became infamous as the noble slayer among aura users, indiscriminately murdering nobles throughout the Grandia Kingdom. That slave escape incident happened about a year after I became a mercenary. Logan remembered the approximate time because it was right after the end of the McLean fiefdom's siege. He could not recall specifics like which family's slave Victor was, but he found him by chance now. And if Logan were to save this boy now, a future aura user would be on my side. It would undeniably be beneficial. However, there was one problem. Amidst his thoughts, Victor, or the boy presumed to be him, bit fiercely into the leg of his oppressor, drawing blood. The mercenaries rushed to beat and pry him off, but the boy held on determinedly. The ferocity in the boy's eyes evoked memories of ominous rumors from a past life. An unstoppable maniac killer. Logan needed reliable soldiers, not weapons that might turn on their own. If it's a weapon, just isolate it, so it can't chip away at the kingdom's power. The conclusion came embarrassingly quickly after a brief period of thought. With that resolve, Logan made his move. This mutt. Thunk. Huh? Hooked Nose, still intent on kicking the boy who had already fainted, was startled by the sudden obstruction of a sheathed sword at his feet. What kind of? Red Hair approached him, but not a single one of his guards noticed in time. By the time the bodyguards were alerted and began to draw their swords, it was too late. Moreover, the person following the red-haired individual appeared to be Kai, a renowned mercenary of Harun. At last, seeing the flame emblem engraved on the armor of the red-haired individual, Hooked Nose instinctively bowed deeply. I did not recognize someone of your stature. Did I somehow offend you? Just passing by, but I became interested in the merchandise you were a bit too rough with." After some hesitation and an awkward chuckle, Hooked Nose responded, "Oh, you were a customer? What an embarrassing time, aha." "That's enough. Is this how you usually treat your slaves?" "No, no, not at all. These ones are just particularly stubborn." "Ha ha ha," I showed an unsightly side of me. "So you're interested in these siblings?" While continuing to bleed from both his forearm and shin, he managed to laugh awkwardly and rub his hands together. Logan paid more attention to his words than his hideous demeanor. "Customer and merchandise. Are you a slave trader?" "Excellent. Can we proceed with the transaction now?" Showing eagerness would typically be a disadvantage in trade negotiations, but the situation was different now. Everyone's attention was on them, and Logan had indirectly demonstrated a position of power over the merchandise, putting him in a psychological advantage. Despite this, the slave trader's market experience kept him from capitulating too easily. These children have the rare red and blue odd eyes, and both siblings share this trait. They are a precious commodity, so their price is quite high. Will that be all right?" "That doesn't matter." "How much?" "Well, at least 10,000 each." Logan's brow twitched at that remark. A healthy young slave's price was usually around 300 gold. The slave trader was asking for a price tens of times higher for the frail children, solely for their odd eyes. Although Victor's true worth could be easily tenfold that amount, Logan had no intention of paying such a price for the siblings who were currently valuable only for their unusual eyes. "More than anything, I don't want to enrich this scum." The moment he locked gazes with the girl's eyes, which brimmed with tears as she fretted over her unconscious brother, they became more than just someone else's slaves he had encountered only 5 minutes ago. Consequently, his tone grew colder. "The price for frail children nearing death is 30 times that of a robust slave, and one looks about to perish, doesn't it?" "Ah, brother." At his words, the girl cried out in alarm, tears cascading down her face. However, the target of his remarks, the slave trader, laughed unabashedly. "Ah ha ha, you have quite the sense of humor. Even in this state he is tough and will bounce back quickly." But the treatment would be expensive, and who knows how much it would cost to feed and train them for a while. "Well, you see, as you can see in this slave market, they are a unique item. 500 gold each. Any more than that for a healthy slave is excessive." "Oh, my customer, that would barely cover the cost of sale." Do you think I'm ignorant of the cost of slaves? Still, considering it is such a difficult item to find, you're too greedy. 1,000. Be satisfied with that." The slave trader started to retort, but silenced himself as Logan gripped the hilt of his sword. It was essentially a threat. Swiftly calculating, the slave trader made his decision. That Victor has always been trouble. He'll likely continue to be. His gaze swept over his bleeding limbs as he thought. A unique appearance may have value as a decorative piece, but if that decoration attempts to stab its owner, the significance is lost. After a moment of hesitation, the slave trader nodded. "Thank you for your business, customer." Regressor of the Fallen Family, Chapter 14. Chapter 14. Ugh. "Brother." The one-eyed slave boy regained consciousness with a murmur, nestled against Kai's back. It wasn't long after Kai had carried the boy to transport him to a priest due to his severe injuries. Despite the boy's condition appearing critical, he regained consciousness much faster than expected, causing the younger sister walking beside them, and even Kai, who was carrying him, to look back in surprise. However, only Logan remained unfazed. He's really quick to get back up. It was a natural consequence since he had been secretly using the power of a force core throughout the journey. The life energy Logan had poured into the boy, using the maximum output he could manage for over 30 minutes, was far better than the sacred magic of average low-level priests. The boy's recovery was nothing unexpected to Logan. However, what concerned him was the younger sister, who kept glancing back and forth between her brother and Logan. Could it be? Even knights sensitive to the matter didn't notice the foreign aspects of his force in experiments. For example, Kai, who carried the boy, didn't sense anything unusual, so how could such a young child? It must be a coincidence. Dismissing it casually, Logan flashed a bright smile at the regained boy. Awake now, Victor? Congratulations on escaping the troubles of a violent master. But the response that came to his smile was a sudden punch. Die! The speed of the punch was surprising, coming from a boy so thin and frail. Despite the child's attempt, the punch was harmless against Logan. As Logan dodged the punch with a baffled expression, Kai, who was holding the child, immediately turned and pinned him down. Crash. Ugh! Saint, stop! Let me go! Brother! Ruria? What should we do with this one, employer? In the chaotic turn of events, Logan sighed and gestured to Kai as they looked at Victor, who had been subdued with an arm twist. Kai took the hint to let go, and the instant he stepped back, the boy, Victor, lunged at Logan again. Rhea, run away! Is he full of fight or just foolish? Sigh. Logan gripped the boy's neck and lifted it to meet his eyes head on. Kid, do you not see the situation? Do I look like those slaver bastards you're used to? An overwhelming murderous intent, surpassing that of the average Force user, blazed from the two red eyes. It was so surprising that even Kai, standing behind him, was startled, and it was impossible for the young boy, Victor, to bear it. Victor instantly groaned, his face turning pale. Gak-ack. Brother, please, mercy. Ignoring the young girl clinging to his feet, Logan only stared coldly at Victor's increasingly pale face. It's good to have spirit, but you have to choose your battles. Grarg. Only death awaits a dog that can't discern who to fight, kid. Thud. Ugh, cough, Logan coldly spoke while looking down at the boy coughing on the ground. Let this be your last warning, Victor. Follow my words, and your sister's safety will be guaranteed. But if such an incident occurs again... Shh. The murderous intent filled in his red eyes bore into Victor's very soul. Not only you, but also your sister will be disposed of. Crack. As Logan casually crushed a pebble in his hand, the color drained from Victor's face. Then he slowly nodded. Good. Believing that the lesson had been taken to heart, Logan finally offered a carrot. I intend to teach you martial arts. I will have you trained as a knight, and eventually make you one. At those words, Victor's head shot up. His eyes, a mix of red and blue, widened dramatically. Me? Are you talking about me? Not only Victor was surprised by Logan's words. Kai, who had overheard the conversation, couldn't hide his shock, and neither could the dwarf Hammer. The unexpected move to make a knight out of a slave child they had just bought seemed outrageous to them. But Logan looked steadily into Victor's eyes without a hint of uncertainty. Yes, as you might know, a knight is a rank of nobility. Naturally, this would free you from the status of a slave. But the expression of the blue-haired kid, which had been filled with nothing but venom, changed rapidly in a matter of seconds. Whether he should trust those words and if he could indeed undergo knight training. A whirlwind of thoughts must be swirling in his head. However, Logan did not give him much time to ponder. If you faithfully follow my instructions and become a knight, I not only will clear your name, but also your sister's. Furthermore. I will do it, Victor responded before the sentence was even complete. Apart from the agonizing screams, it was the first robust voice Logan had heard from Victor since they had met. Logan noted that this eager response came immediately after the welfare of his sister was mentioned. Indeed, this kid. The presence of the small girl who clung tightly to his side reassured Logan that she might be the key to taming any untamed ferocity within a potential noble killer. Good. Your sister will receive basic education, including literacy and etiquette, but if you become lazy or cause problems again, I'll work hard. The differently colored eyes blazed intensely as if shooting flames. Satisfied with that fiery gaze, Logan nodded slightly and smiled contentedly. Having acquired a new objective in a future aura user, in addition to the dwarf and battle instructor, Logan's step was light. However, returning to the McLean territory would take some time. Victor and his sister appeared much smaller than their peers due to insufficient nutrition and could not endure a journey at full gallop on horseback. Still, Logan couldn't constantly adjust to their pace. He showed consideration by slowing down the journey that would normally take 3 days to 5 days. They're actually holding up quite well. Logan had the siblings ride on Kai's horse and Hammer's pony. Despite the sore from riding the bouncing horses on the first day, by the next, they smoothly adapted to the movement, and by the third day, they endured even the challenging gallop. It wasn't just Victor who was aware he would become an aura user and thus might be talented in physical control, but his sister also managed well. Could it be their bloodline? As Logan contemplated revising the siblings' education plan, their group arrived at the McLean territory. The old castle that served as a fortress to block mountain monsters when the McLean had been lords of the southwestern region had become the modest stronghold of the now declining McLean family. Entering the decrepit castle, Logan encountered peeling eyes of surprise, parting like waves. Many territory residents avoided from far away, while those who could not escape close contact immediately fell flat and trembled at the sight of him. Looking at the even worse treatment than before his departure, Logan could only flash a bitter smile. It was not unlike the treatment a tyrant deserving scorn might receive. Even Kai, usually without expression, glanced at Logan from time to time, and the faces of Victor and his sister darkened in real time. Too many questions lingered, but before anyone could voice them, the unwitting dwarf spoke up. "Master, to come home to such treatment, what on earth did you do out there?" With a wry smile, Logan tuned his hearing to grasp the whispers echoing from afar. "He's lost it. Monster enthusiast. I heard he's into corpses. Either way, not normal. Putting the family to shame. Why summon mercenaries to heighten the unease? He even bought young slaves. What's he planning?" Whispers were spreading at an alarmingly baffling rate. How did they find out about what happened in Harun already? And every single rumor had bizarrely twisted the truth, plunging the already rock-bottom family reputation even deeper underground. "It's just rumors. It's not relevant to your duties, so don't worry about it." Despite their unease, the party could only nod at Logan's calm demeanor, but Logan himself had a nagging feeling. This may become a hassle. That ominous premonition turned into reality as they entered the castle. "My lord!" Although it had been a while since he had seen him, Rick's face was somewhat contorted by his hasty entrance as he shouted fervently for Logan, and before Logan could even respond, Rick screamed as if crying out. "What have you been doing out there?" Although he somewhat anticipated it, the reaction was even more intense than expected. "What is this talk of spending over 150,000 gold on useless monster meat? The most absurd rumor I've ever heard. It must be a lie, a misinterpretation, right? Tell me it's so." Rick pressed on without a breath, and his appearance was almost pitiful, but Logan remained unfazed. "It's true." Logan's indifferent answer turned Rick's expression more desperate. "The rumors all over say that you've lost your mind. The Lord wants you home immediately." I see." "You see? What are you seeing? This is not the time for you to be calm." "It's all right." "It's not all right." Is your speech getting shorter? "You really don't seem to grasp the situation. I've been trying to explain and excuse it, but to think all that was actually true." Though Rick was visibly more distressed about the situation than him, Logan simply smiled. "Don't worry, it will be resolved quickly." "Ah, are you even listening to me?" Ignoring Rick's desperate pleas, Logan made his way straight to the Lord's residence. "Logan here. Come in." Almost as if expecting him, a deep voice beckoned, and Logan entered without delay. As I thought, the sight of the two people seated at the head of the meeting room oozed coldness. As soon as he entered, a cold voice that matched the sight addressed him. "So was your runaway pleasant?" "It was a meaningful outing on my part." "Hearing the rumors, it seems you've enjoyed a mad escapade. At least it was worth it for you." Sigh. "This is becoming troublesome." His father's reaction was worse than he expected. But unlike his inner thoughts, his reply was ready and immediate. "Rumors are merely that. There is no shame in my actions." To those words, his stepmother, Marianne, showed an incredulous expression, while his father, Patrick, seemed slightly hopeful. "Are the rumors misconstrued?" "I'm not sure which rumors you refer to." "The young lord has been collecting monster meat, bought a young slave and a dwarf, recruited hundreds of low-level mercenaries into the territory. I've omitted the hyperboles and stated the facts." Marianne helped him kindly with an explanation, which made Logan's brows furrow, but his demeanor remained unchanged. Is there anything among these you wish to apologize for? Not at all. Patrick's eyebrows twitched at the confident answer. That means they're all true. Yes, they are. Look, you see, the young lord lacks self-awareness. He doesn't realize how his actions tarnish our family's honor. Mother, that is too harsh. What? I used the money obtained from my annulled engagement as I saw fit. Father has already stated that it is not his concern. The two locked gazes. Marianne's sharp eyes and Logan's bold red eyes exchanged sharp glares. A heavy sigh emerged from the other red-eyed individual. Patrick, you heard it, don't you? Even now, will you continue to take his side? Enough. The young lord is fundamentally wrong. Enough, my lady. Patrick's voice boomed intimidatingly, resounding within the room as Marianne's face turned white. You. How can you speak to me like that? My lady, please step outside. I would like to have a word with Logan alone. You really. This will be my last warning to Logan. The word warning seemed to mollify her a bit, whether it was the effect of the previous scolding or something else. Marianne shot one last venomous glance at Logan before exiting silently. Of course, there was a bit of lingering resentment. Bang! Even after the study door closed with a noise that could break it, Patrick gazed at his eldest son with a heavy look for a long time, and soon a voice heavier than his gaze filled the room. What exactly is the problem, Logan? It looks like I won't be able to get away with a simple answer. Upon hearing his father's voice, Logan sensed it. His expression hardened as he contemplated his answer, but his father's calm voice proceeded ahead. Let's have a frank conversation. What's the issue? What's the reason for all this? If I told you, you wouldn't understand. You don't wish to be understood? That's not it. Do you actually have a reason? Yes, I do. Ugh. The sigh transmitted a palpable frustration. Patrick was about to continue when a low voice, filled with complex emotions, silenced Logan's response. Are you aware of how people are speaking of you? I have some idea. Do you? They say you're violent, cruel, obsessed with money, and recently you've gone crazy. Among these, how much have you actually heard? Shall I detail more specific rumors? Patrick wasn't seeking a real answer, so Logan quietly kept his mouth shut. How long must I continue to cover for you? If there is a set term, then speak up. Faced with a voice filled with lament and a deeply sunken expression, Logan found himself involuntarily bowing his head. To this was added a comment like a dagger to the heart. Doing so might at least warrant an excuse that you did your best to your deceased mother. Upon hearing this, Logan's expression turned rigid. The topic of Logan's biological mother was a mutual sore point between the two, essentially a taboo within the family. Yet, this mention was nothing short of an ultimatum from his father, Patrick. Silent until then, Logan eventually spoke with a heavy tone. 1 year. Please give me just 1 year. What? Patrick's expression changed dramatically, caught utterly off guard by the unexpected response. Regressor of the Fallen Family. Chapter 15. Chapter 15. Patrick's Sigh. Patrick sighed deeply as he watched his eldest son leave the room. I will prove the reasons for my actions within a year. Until then, please turn a blind eye to what I wish to do on my own. How much should I trust him? Although his son's eyes were resolute, Patrick found it hard to trust him. Nevertheless, Patrick felt compelled to acquiesce to the request. Please, Father. It was the first plea he had heard since that day, a plea he hadn't even heard when his son partook in all manner of wickedness. A plea, Patrick bitterly smiled, finding it strange that such a normal word between parent and child could feel so foreign. But should Logan fail to prove his words after a year, I must make a resolute decision, for the honor of the family. He was the head of the McLean family before being a father. Ha! Click. With a long sigh, weakened hands opened a simple pendant to reveal a portrait within. Today, the familiar face of the blue-haired beauty seemed to painfully dig into his eyes. Raina, I'm sorry. I can't understand what our son is thinking at all. Despite my promises to protect and raise him well, perhaps I've been too neglectful. His last words, feeble and filled with self-reproach, stung the heart of a father. not just the head of the family. Thud. The weighty sound of the office door shook his chest heavily. Mother. Simply uttering the word brought back vivid memories that would otherwise feel distant. Even with Logan's memories of his past life spanning decades ago, the word mother held such power. That's why it weighed even heavier on his heart. I didn't expect him to mention her. In his previous life, even when he was expelled from the family, these words were not mentioned until the very end. Objectively speaking, Logan didn't think his current actions were worse than the sword fight from his past life, so his reasons were somewhat predictable. He still holds some expectations, doesn't he? And without realizing it, Logan let out a soft, mocking laugh. As he walked down the corridor with his mind in turmoil, a familiar voice rang out from the opposite end. Brother, Ronyan? His younger brother Ronyan appeared with an uncomfortable look, escorted by 2 knights. Brother, are you all right? Seeing him panting heavily, it seemed he had run all the way from training. It was a pattern all too familiar, but now it was a welcome sight. Of course I'm fine. It's been a while, Ronnie. Huff, I'm relieved. The rumors were quite bad, so I was worried. The sight of Ronyan sighing in relief and smiling. That ever-constant and unchanging demeanor. Huh? Something's different. Of course, his brother was genuinely concerned and relieved for him. But the subtle hint of excitement in his eyes, mixed with a strange sense of anticipation, was different from usual. And oddly, he seemed more lively than before. Oh ho? Could it be? With a hint of curiosity, Logan focused on the inner workings of his brother and sensed traces of active power surging within him. Suddenly, Logan's eyes widened. You! It's not just about saying hello. You've already... As expected, I knew brother would notice. Ronyan's face beamed with pride, his desire to showcase his achievement clear as day. And just as he intended, Logan was genuinely filled with wonder. At merely 14 years old. In Logan's previous life, Ronyan had awakened his force only during the territorial wars, and there had been concern that his regression might delay his younger brother's achievements. Instead, they had been accelerated, which was a curious turn of events. Due to your influence, when I heard you returned, I rushed out to see you, but these knights tried to stop me. What? It was then that Logan noticed the battered armor of the knights standing behind Ronyan. The circumstances surrounding the awakening were absurd, but it wasn't the end of it. Escaping from 2 knights immediately after awakening, this suggested that his brother's talent was exceptional, and the news was enough to lift Logan's spirits. Ha, 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 ha. Well done, Ronnie. Ronyan's earliest achievement shined even brighter. And as for, once Ronnie's force stabilizes, should I also teach him the secrets of the divine sword? Not only could Logan repay the emotional debt to his brother, but also lay the most solid foundation for overcoming future crises. It was an unavoidable joy for Logan. Ronyan's success did not just bring joy to Logan alone. That day, the news of Ronyan's awakening shook the entire McLean family. County Force Awakening did not guarantee one would become an aura user, but the likelihood was certainly higher. The McLean barony had been established by a former aura user, and Ronyan was believed to be the genius who could bring greatness to the family, stirring excitement throughout. On the other hand, Logan, compared to his recent past, could not escape being harshly judged. Of course, the man himself was busy with his own affairs, unbothered by their opinions. There certainly are more C-rank mercenaries who can ride than I thought. With long-term contracts and horses on offer, the mercenaries from across the country nearly flocked here. Is that so? Good grief! Selecting just 350 reputable individuals from among them was no easy task, so don't look at me like that. It took effort to cut off at that point. More should have been accepted, you say? This madness. Sorry. It appears my limited insight was lacking. Dwayne had done his job too well. A considerable force of 350 C-rank mercenaries, or several company-sized military units, had gathered, armed, in the McLean territory. They might not be enough to challenge the barony, but they were plenty to cause disorder. And so, they had to stay in a nearly dilapidated villa in the southern part of the territory, under the surveillance of the knights, providing their own food and lodging for anywhere between 5 to 10 days. As the days of waiting added up, naturally, the mercenaries grew more dissatisfied. Surely they didn't trick us. A mere barony wouldn't be foolish enough to offend the mercenary guild. Who knows? Maybe they have gone mad, especially that eldest son with the bad reputation. Ah, I've heard about that. He might really be crazy. Damn it, are we just wasting our time? Think before you speak. Considering their relationship with the guild, the barony will surely compensate us well. What? Seriously? As Logan's reputation worsened with each passing day and the accumulated stress weighed on them, the mercenaries were on the verge of exploding. And then the subject of the rumors himself stood before them. Mounted crossbowmen, you say? Yes. Logan's nonchalant response made Kai question him once more. You're not confusing them with bowmen, are you? No, actual crossbowmen. Sir, Logan, a crossbow is not an efficient weapon for cavalry, not even in wars. I know. Excuse me? While crossbows had vastly superior power to bows, even an untrained person would take over a minute to load one on the ground. With such a force, even if they carried several loaded crossbows, they'd run out of firepower after engaging for more than a minute, an embarrassingly ineffective unit. So naturally, Kai was in disbelief. But regardless of what you might think if you consider it a waste of money, flinching, just train them thoroughly. There's a reason, and you'll find out eventually. Despite the awkward smile and nod from Kai, Logan chuckled. He was half joking, but it seemed that was indeed Kai's initial thought. Yet Logan didn't want to fuss about it. What mattered now was ensuring the mercenaries were under firm control to undergo the necessary training. Logan's gaze shifted to the training ground near the villa, where a discordant group of mercenaries bustled about. They wore various mismatched garb, typical of their independent lives, and were not the types to let any slight pass them by. Even a brief observation suggested organizing them into a single unit for training wouldn't be easy. First, I need to establish discipline. A deadly smile spread across Logan's face. If you'd trust me with it. Kai stepped forward, sensing his obligation through Logan's gaze. No, you might bring some calm, at least on the surface. Sir, I'll handle it myself. You just observe. Mercenaries were driven by money, but endless handouts would make them view their benefactor as a fool. It was an unfortunate reality for those whose lives were hewn by the blade. And a veteran warrior from a past life knew just how to dominate such individuals. Look over there. Oh, a flame emblem. Is he some young noble? Shh. He must be that eldest son. From the moment Logan approached the villa, whispers followed him, growing louder as he entered the large yard serving as a training field. Look at those peach fuzz. Is he even of age? I'll bet my own hand he's not. Where do you intend to use my hand? Some could scarcely make sense of it. There, isn't that Harun's Kai behind him? Who? The greatest A-rank Kai. Oh, I think I've heard of him. Those who recognized Kai walking behind Logan. Shh. It's obvious he's been raised well. Ah, this wretched life. I hate nobles more and more each time I see one. Must be nice being born to lucky parents. Damn it, I don't even know my own parents, and the ones who made it abundantly clear how rough their lives had been. With each face in the crowd expressing their own take, Logan searched for one in particular. Look at that guy in armor. My goodness, he even carries a sword. Planning to play soldier? Specifically, someone who thought they were sneaky enough to scoff behind his back. As Logan stopped, he pinpointed the man. Hey, you? Me? Are you speaking to me? Do I look funny wearing my armor and carrying a sword? What are you talking about? The mercenary who had been smirking moments ago couldn't fathom that Logan had overheard his comments. Well, I suppose that's a thought you might have if you had the skills to back it up. Excuse me? But for a mere C-rank mercenary to look down on others, know your place. That simple statement froze many of those who had belittled Logan, along with the few who viewed him somewhat favorably. You seem to have a sense of pride. Are my words displeasing? Well then, good. Stepping into the center of the training field, Logan looked around before spreading his arms wide. It doesn't have to be this fool, but anyone who challenges me and can land even a single blow will be paid a year's worth on the spot and dismissed. This is a pledge on the honor of a noble, and all of you here are witnesses. Startled by Logan's unexpected proposal, the mercenaries stared at him in disbelief. When nobody moved for a while, despite Logan's challenge, he nudged Kai, who was standing behind him. With a sigh, Kai stepped forward. There must be friends here who know me. This young lord keeps his word. Anyone is welcome to try. Really? Whoa. Me? I'll do it. At Kai's word, the mercenaries finally realized Logan was serious, and the noise level surged again. Logan gestured to the first mercenary who had scoffed at him. Fine then. Why don't you go first? All right. Let's not go back on our words. With bravado, the large mercenary stepped forward. His towering figure loomed over 2 meters. His bulging muscles and size would make anyone believe he was at least A rank rather than C rank. And he looked quite strong, gripping 2 massive clubs in each hand from their crossed position on his back. Isn't that Hale? Oh wait, isn't he B rank? Not yet, I suppose. Maybe after this job? For Logan, the man was nothing more than an amusement. So you were confident because of that stature. The mercenary brashly stepped forward and shouted, All right then, contractee, come at me. Me first? You'll regret it. Don't worry. I've had more meals of the blade than you have had hot dinners. Oh, is that so? As you wish then. Chkak. As Logan's words finished, a chopping sound pierced through the air. Nobody saw Logan's swift strike to the brown-haired mercenary's chin. All they saw was a burst of red and gold light and a sudden gale, and in that instant, the mercenary was flying in the air. While the crowd looked on, aghast, blurp, crunch, thud. The mercenary's body tumbled across the ground, his face a ruin. If you're going to flap your gums, at least have the skill to back it up. Logan spoke coldly, his face impassive as he looked around. Anyone else want to flap their gums? Every mercenary surrounding them avoided Logan's piercing gaze. Chapter 16. As expected. The situation unfolded exactly as Logan had predicted. There were 2 surefire ways to handle mercenaries, money and power. Mercenaries sold their martial abilities in exchange for money, and such work was a gamble with their lives. Therefore, they instinctively sought the favor of the strong. By being allies, they could increase their odds of survival, and even as enemies, they hoped for a modicum of respect. For veterans, this survival instinct was deeply ingrained in their souls. Logan, having lived for decades as a mercenary in his past life, knew this better than anyone. I'll ask the Lord's physician to use potions on him, and after a few days of being bedridden, he'll recover. Everyone knows that punishment for noble impiety isn't severe, right? With a casual kick to the fallen mercenary, the mercenary's body quivered. Even with this, no one dared to mention the truth that a noble's son is not a formal noble, and the crime of noble impiety usually warrants nothing more than a few lashes. Now wasn't the time to worry about such trivialities. A force user? At his age? Insane! Is this even possible? Murmurs of astonishment were clear, and those who had sneered now quickly turned their heads away, avoiding Logan's gaze. The brilliant golden radiance emanating from Logan's hand had quieted the onlookers. Even Kai, who had suspected something, let out a sigh. However, he knew he had to speak up. Was it necessary to go this far, employer? These are not A-rank mercenaries like you. They might not outright breach the contract, but they could fulfill it half-heartedly. What's that to do with it? If I control them well. Kai appeared confused, but Logan didn't bother to convince him. It was a necessary process because of the weapons that would eventually be doled out to them. Eventually, I'll have to lead these men. If I press them with power now, they won't disregard my orders in the future. That'll make it easier for you to conduct their training, right? Faced with Logan's resolve, Kai's thoughts took a new direction. Perhaps this isn't just a mere game of soldiers. As the absurd term crossbow cavalry had been heard, tension once again gripped Kai's heart. Logan internally smiled at this effect. This second effect was precisely what Logan had targeted with his performance. I am Logan McLean, the one who has assembled you. Only after the tumult had calmed did Logan offer a formal introduction. Climbing onto the prepared stage, he began his introduction, though his recent display of force ensured that silence reigned over the training ground. He enjoyed the silence before continuing. I imagine many of you are curious about the reason I gathered you all by offering money. Logan paused, scanning the eager eyes of the mercenaries before continuing with a smirk. For the record, the weight you've endured will be appropriately paid. Don't worry, I'm not a madman who's eaten monster flesh intent on deceiving you with empty promises. Soft snickers erupted from the group. Logan didn't miss a beat and got straight to the point. I intend to train you into cavalry. Naturally, a long-term contract of at least a year will be the basis. Wow. Really? For mercenaries accustomed to fighting for their lives in exchange for money, a long-term contract was a sweet deal. Clients don't offer long-term contracts when battles are imminent. With every battle, a mercenary's life expectancy drops, so long-term contracts generally don't make sense right before a fight. Thus, long-term contracts implied no immediate battles and guaranteed a steady income. However, it is mandatory for everyone to undergo training under this A-rank mercenary Kai. The training period will be at least 3 months. The excitement among the mercenaries died down at this nuance. This is a bit. Even so, look at the pay. Why at our age? Oh, this is vexing. The mercenaries became noisy for different reasons, but Logan's next words brought silence once more. The contract is for 1 year. The monthly salary is 400 gold, and the horses provided to you will belong to you at the end of the contract. The mercenaries stared at each other, dumbstruck at first, then comprehension set in. Wow, definitely doing it. The training ground was filled with cheers once more. It was an irresistible offer. C-rank mercenaries usually earned 400 gold during times of war, their price dropping drastically in peacetime. To guarantee them 400 gold unabated was akin to handing them 3 months' wages as a bonus. It was a condition no mercenary could refuse. However, I intend to train you as crossbow cavalry. I have no use for those who can't fit in. At this condition, some mercenaries' faces darkened. The absurd crossbow cavalry class aside, to shoot while riding required agility and flexibility, skills that exceeded merely knowing how to ride a horse. We'll start with a simple qualifying test. The murmuring amongst the mercenaries grew louder, but none dared to object. In the end, Logan signed contracts with 312 mercenaries, excluding 3813 refused training, and 25 failed the test, and training commenced the following day. Become my knight. Victor was prepared to do anything to achieve the objective set by his new master. But on his first day at the territory, the orders given by his master were most perplexing. First, eat well and sleep well. Sir, what you have to do is just that. Despite his confusion, the new master vanished after leaving those words. Moreover, from that day, the meals and lodging provided were luxuries Victor and his sister Rhea had never experienced. Soft bread, meat, and a soft bed put Victor ill at ease. Why? Why is this? Determined to endure harsh treatment, he was bewildered. However, after 3 days, Victor's curiosity was quenched. Come out, Victor. Training begins. The day began very early at dawn, and the new master started the day with Victor. You sure recover quickly for a young age. A few days of good food and sleep, and look at you change. Logan observed Victor in the training field after bringing the boy there. Feeling a bad premonition, Victor instinctively braced himself. Now let's run. His premonition became a reality shortly after. Heck, if you slow down again. You can do more, run! As the barked commands echoed across the field, Victor gritted his teeth and ran again. Though his exhausted body didn't magically speed up, Logan was already impressed with his current performance. Just a bit of good food and he's like this. Logan checked on Victor closely while demonstrating the kingdom's swordsmanship, ensuring not to push the boy beyond his limits. Take a break! Whoa! Victor practically collapsed as soon as the word was given. Brother! Victor's anxious sister, Victoria, called out to him, and with pitiful eyes, she looked towards Logan, who gave her a nod and a smile. With that, Victoria rushed to her brother with a water bottle and towel prepared. Logan watched their interaction with satisfaction. Indeed, he has talent, and at just 14 years old, Victor was much smaller than his peers due to poor nutrition, but he only reached his limit after nearly running 20 kilometers, a clear indication of potential far exceeding ordinary humans. More than that, Logan admired the boy's tenacity to keep running despite being on the brink of collapse. Victor's perseverance slowly dispelled one of Logan's concerns. At least he's not naturally a noble slayer. Victor in Logan's previous life symbolized violence, but what Logan observed did not indicate this was the boy's innate nature. There must have been a reason he turned out that way before. Probably. Logan's eyes drifted to the little girl waving a fan towards her brother. After watching the siblings for a moment, Logan turned firm once again. Enough, get up, next training. It had been barely 15 minutes since Victor fell. Logan started the training with the kingdom's swordsmanship. The position of the feet is crucial when switching from this stance to the after movement. Although Victor's body was still trembling and he struggled to catch his breath, his eyes did not waver from the sight of Logan's demonstration. Concentrate. Focus. Victor tried to clear his mind, which was clouded with the desire to collapse in sleep or doubt that he could even get up again. One fact kept him standing. If good food and comfortable lodgings are the price for all this, it's worth it. He chewed on his lower lip until he could taste blood, which seemed to clear his mind momentaneously. With eyes now a bit sharper, Victor focused intently on Logan's sword technique demonstration. Logan had to try not to show his astonishment. He follows along after just one demonstration? Even the most basic sword technique isn't something a novice can mimic perfectly after a single demonstration, especially after an exhaustive workout that pushed him to his limits. But Victor, despite being at the brink of physical exhaustion, managed the movements with only a few minor errors. How long did it take me to get this right? So, faced with such natural skill, Logan couldn't help but compare Victor to the greatest prodigy he had known. Even Ronyan didn't catch on this fast. Did he watch it twice? And the more he thought, the more astonished he became. And then suddenly another fact struck him. This kid is of the same age as Ronyan. In a past life, Victor became a notorious noble slayer, while Ronyan earned fame as the youngest aura user. Therefore, Logan had never thought to compare them before. But now, maybe this kid could even surpass Ronyan. On just the first day of training, it was perhaps too soon for such predictions. Still, Logan couldn't suppress the broad smile of pride spreading across his face, and he announced with that proud tone, "Again, your footwork is slightly off. Today's goal is to perform a perfect 100 repetitions. No food until then." The sword training ended 3 hours later. Hack. You've done well. What you did today will be your daily fundamental training from now. Heek, hua. While Victor lay there gasping for air, Logan looked down at him fondly. If you can execute the kingdom's swordsmanship over 1,000 times continuously, you can consider yourself a knight. Instead of using the vague notion of force, Logan provided a specific number. Achieving such would require the level not of an ordinary person, but a force user. Victor's expression transformed at these words. A knight. He neither knew the difficulty of the task, nor if it truly possible, but it did not matter. The word knight symbolized freedom, success, and hope to Victor. And Rhea, my sister. Watching him from afar, his sister's safety was implied in that promise. Can you do it? Yes. It was the most determined response he had given since the training began. Good. If there's anything else you need for your training, tell Rick. He'll arrange almost anything for you. No, there isn't. Victor hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. It was a brief hesitation, but not one Logan would miss. Really nothing? Just, please, just as now. Victor struggled before completing his sentence. Just ensure my sister is taken care of as you have been. That's all I need. It was an expected reply, but it was enough to bring a smile to Logan's face. Chapter 16. As expected. The situation unfolded exactly as Logan had predicted. There were two surefire ways to handle mercenaries, money and power. Mercenaries sold their martial abilities in exchange for money, and such work was a gamble with their lives. Therefore, they instinctively sought the favor of the strong. By being allies, they could increase their odds of survival, and even as enemies, they hoped for a modicum of respect. For veterans, this survival instinct was deeply ingrained in their souls. Logan, having lived for decades as a mercenary in his past life, knew this better than anyone. I'll ask the Lord's physician to use potions on him, and after a few days of being bedridden, he'll recover. Everyone knows that punishment for noble impiety isn't severe, right? With a casual kick to the fallen mercenary, the mercenary's body quivered. Even with this, no one dared to mention the truth that a noble's son is not a formal noble, and the crime of noble impiety usually warrants nothing more than a few lashes. Now wasn't the time to worry about such trivialities. A force user? At his age? Insane! Is this even possible? Murmurs of astonishment were clear, and those who had sneered now quickly turned their heads away, avoiding Logan's gaze. The brilliant golden radiance emanating from Logan's hand had quieted the onlookers. Even Kai, who had suspected something, let out a sigh. However, he knew he had to speak up. Was it necessary to go this far, employer? These are not A-rank mercenaries like you. They might not outright breach the contract, but they could fulfill it half-heartedly. What's that to do with it? If I control them well. Kai appeared confused, but Logan didn't bother to convince him. It was a necessary process because of the weapons that would eventually be doled out to them. Eventually I'll have to lead these men. If I press them with power now, they won't disregard my orders in the future. That'll make it easier for you to conduct their training, right? Faced with Logan's resolve, Kai's thoughts took a new direction. Perhaps this isn't just a mere game of soldiers. As the absurd term crossbow cavalry had been heard, tension once again gripped Kai's heart. Logan internally smiled at this effect. This second effect was precisely what Logan had targeted with his performance. I am Logan McLean, the one who has assembled you. Only after the tumult had calmed did Logan offer a formal introduction. Climbing onto the prepared stage, he began his introduction, though his recent display of force ensured that silence reigned over the training ground. He enjoyed the silence before continuing. I imagine many of you are curious about the reason I gathered you all by offering money. Logan paused, scanning the eager eyes of the mercenaries before continuing with a smirk. For the record, the weight you've endured will be appropriately paid. Don't worry, I'm not a madman who's eaten monster flesh intent on deceiving you with empty promises. Soft snickers erupted from the group. Logan didn't miss a beat and got straight to the point. I intend to train you into cavalry. Naturally, a long-term contract of at least a year will be the basis. Wow! Really? For mercenaries accustomed to fighting for their lives in exchange for money, a long-term contract was a sweet deal. Clients don't offer long-term contracts when battles are imminent. With every battle, a mercenary's life expectancy drops, so long-term contracts generally don't make sense right before a fight. Thus, long-term contracts implied no immediate battles and guaranteed a steady income. However, it is mandatory for everyone to undergo training under this A-rank mercenary, Kai. The training period will be at least 3 months. The excitement among the mercenaries died down at this nuance. This is a bit. Even so, look at the pay. Why at our age? Oh, this is vexing. The mercenaries became noisy for different reasons, but Logan's next words brought silence once more. The contract is for 1 year, the monthly salary is 400 gold, and the horses provided to you will belong to you at the end of the contract. The mercenaries stared at each other, dumbstruck at first. Then comprehension set in. Wow, definitely doing it. The training ground was filled with cheers once more. It was an irresistible offer. C-rank mercenaries usually earned 400 gold during times of war, their price dropping drastically in peacetime. To guarantee them 400 gold unabated was akin to handing them 3 months' wages as a bonus. It was a condition no mercenary could refuse. However, I intend to train you as crossbow cavalry. I have no use for those who can't fit in. At this condition, some mercenaries' faces darkened. The absurd crossbow cavalry class aside, to shoot while riding required agility and flexibility, skills that exceeded merely knowing how to ride a horse. We'll start with a simple qualifying test. The murmuring amongst the mercenaries grew louder, but none dared to object. In the end, Logan signed contracts with 312 mercenaries, excluding 38 to 13 refused training and 25 failed the test, and training commenced the following day. Become my knight. Victor was prepared to do anything to achieve the objective set by his new master. But on his first day at the territory, the orders given by his master were most perplexing. First, eat well and sleep well. Sir, what you have to do is just that. Despite his confusion, the new master vanished after leaving those words. Moreover, from that day, the meals and lodging provided were luxuries Victor and his sister Rhea had never experienced. Soft bread, meat, and a soft bed put Victor ill at ease. Why? Why is this? Determined to endure harsh treatment, he was bewildered. However, after 3 days, Victor's curiosity was quenched. Come out, Victor. Training begins. The day began very early at dawn, and the new master started the day with Victor. You sure recover quickly for a young age. A few days of good food and sleep, and look at you change. Logan observed Victor in the training field after bringing the boy there. Feeling a bad premonition, Victor instinctively braced himself. Now let's run. His premonition became a reality shortly after. Heck, if you slow down again, you can do more. Run. As the barked commands echoed across the field, Victor gritted his teeth and ran again. Though his exhausted body didn't magically speed up, Logan was already impressed with his current performance. Just a bit of good food and he's like this. Logan checked on Victor closely while demonstrating the kingdom's swordsmanship, ensuring not to push the boy beyond his limits. Take a break. Whoa. Victor practically collapsed as soon as the word was given. Brother, Victor's anxious sister Victoria called out to him, and with pitiful eyes she looked towards Logan, who gave her a nod and a smile. With that, Victoria rushed to her brother with a water bottle and towel prepared. Logan watched their interaction with satisfaction. Indeed, he has talent. And at just 14 years old, Victor was much smaller than his peers due to poor nutrition, but he only reached his limit after nearly running 20 kilometers, a clear indication of potential far exceeding ordinary humans. More than that, Logan admired the boy's tenacity to keep running despite being on the brink of collapse. Victor's perseverance slowly dispelled one of Logan's concerns. At least he's not naturally a noble slayer. Victor in Logan's previous life symbolized violence, but what Logan observed did not indicate this was the boy's innate nature. There must have been a reason he turned out that way before. Probably. Logan's eyes drifted to the little girl waving a fan towards her brother. After watching the siblings for a moment, Logan turned firm once again. Enough! Get up! Next training! It had been barely 15 minutes since Victor fell. Logan started the training with the kingdom's swordsmanship. The position of the feet is crucial when switching from this stance to the after movement. Although Victor's body was still trembling, and he struggled to catch his breath, his eyes did not waver from the sight of Logan's demonstration. Concentrate. Focus! Victor tried to clear his mind, which was clouded with the desire to collapse and sleep, or doubt that he could even get up again. One fact kept him standing. If good food and comfortable lodgings are the price for all this, it's worth it. He chewed on his lower lip until he could taste blood, which seemed to clear his mind momentaneously. With eyes now a bit sharper, Victor focused intently on Logan's sword technique demonstration. Logan had to try not to show his astonishment. He follows along after just one demonstration? Even the most basic sword technique isn't something a novice can mimic perfectly after a single demonstration, especially after an exhaustive workout that pushed him to his limits. But Victor, despite being at the brink of physical exhaustion, managed the movements with only a few minor errors. How long did it take me to get this right? Faced with such natural skill, Logan couldn't help but compare Victor to the greatest prodigy he had known. Even Ranyan didn't catch on this fast. Did he watch it twice? The more he thought, the more astonished he became, and then suddenly another fact struck him. This kid is of the same age as Ranyan. In a past life, Victor became a notorious noble slayer, while Ranyan earned fame as the youngest aura user. Therefore, Logan had never thought to compare them before. But now, maybe this kid could even surpass Ranyan. On just the first day of training, it was perhaps too soon for such predictions. Still, Logan couldn't suppress the broad smile of pride spreading across his face, and he announced with that proud tone, "Again, your footwork is slightly off. Today's goal is to perform a perfect 100 repetitions. No food until then." The sword training ended 3 hours later. Hack! You've done well. What you did today will be your daily fundamental training from now. Heek! Hua! While Victor lay there gasping for air, Logan looked down at him fondly. If you can execute the kingdom's swordsmanship over 1,000 times continuously, you can consider yourself a knight. Instead of using the vague notion of force, Logan provided a specific number. Achieving such would require the level not of an ordinary person, but a force user. Victor's expression transformed at these words. A knight. He neither knew the difficulty of the task, nor if it truly possible, but it did not matter. The word knight symbolized freedom, success, and hope to Victor. And Rhea, my sister. Watching him from afar, his sister's safety was implied in that promise. Can you do it? Yes. It was the most determined response he had given since the training began. Good. If there's anything else you need for your training, tell Rick. He'll arrange almost anything for you. No, there isn't. Victor hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. It was a brief hesitation, but not one Logan would miss. Really nothing? Just, please, just as now. Victor struggled before completing his sentence. Just ensure my sister is taken care of as you have been. That's all I need. It was an expected reply, but it was enough to bring a smile to Logan's face. Regressor of the Fallen Family. Chapter 17. It had been a week since Logan returned to the territory. He had been focusing on his training, occasionally inspecting the mercenaries along with Ronian and Victor. The first shipment of Karok meat from Kyle and Ironwood and parts from Triton's territory had arrived in the McLean territory. With that, Logan called for Hammer and handed him a blueprint. What is this? Hammer frowned at the blueprint spread before him. I've tried to draw it as detailed as I could within the limits of my knowledge. Logan was not a professional technician, but he could produce plans of an amateur technician's level because he had used such weapons for decades. Of course, by Hammer's standards, the blueprint was nothing but rough sketches. A cartridge that stores bolts at the rear of the crossbow and loads them automatically, and the string must be triple layered to shoot 3 bolts consecutively. Hammer looked back and forth between the blueprint and Logan's face, his expression incredulous. Even if I could make such a structure, the string wouldn't withstand rapid firing. Are you planning to make a weapon that's used once and discarded? And if you attach such a wooden box right behind it, it would be cumbersome for the person shooting the crossbow. Who the hell came up with this? Nonsense? It was me. Cough. On second thought, the idea is quite ingenious. And that nonsense will later become a disaster for our kingdom, you fool. Fortunately, the problems Hammer posed were within Logan's ability to solve. Reduce the size of the bolts to decrease the overall size of the cartridge. Yes, it's meant to be used once. Instead, make the cartridge modular, so it can be reloaded after each shot. Excuse me? Let's just call it a magazine for convenience. It wasn't an advanced technological solution, but rather a shift in perspective that offered the answer, which shook Hammer's gaze intensely. Impossible! I've heard that recently a tool resembling a goat's foot has been invented that can load 4 to 5 bolts per minute, but this is far superior. By current common knowledge, a crossbow was a single-shot weapon difficult even for a skilled archer to fire twice in a minute. The crossbow Logan described surpassed his knowledge, a weapon that exceeded the times. He would have believed it if he were told it was an artifact enchanted with magic. Are you saying that you can make such a thing with just one cartridge? It will definitely work. Just try to make it. Logan's assertive promise left Hammer without further objections. To Hammer, Logan's explanation was not just an idea, but it reeked of experience. To add only one cartridge to such a revolutionary weapon, and the parts consist only of a mainspring and glue for the bowstring. I feel inspired to take on the challenge. All right, I'll make it. When do you think it will be possible? You ask me to make something unheard of and set a deadline? It's still a weapon made by humans. Excuse me? That's nonsense. Who? Where? There's no need for you to know. If you think it's impossible, give up. Really now? All right, fine. 1 month. Within that time, I will make you something far superior, Hammer declared assertively, his dwarven pride tickled by Logan's words. Only then could Logan smile at the response. The crossbow was powerful enough to penetrate armor, but it had been overlooked in times of war due to its slow reloading time, a hunter's weapon. In the modern warfare of the day, where the efficiency of archers releasing many arrows in a short time frame against massed troops was far superior. However, 10 years later when the Empire started a war, they created a repeating crossbow and used it to deploy massive crossbow units. This repeating crossbow unit demonstrated destructive power that could counter knight orders without requiring mages, depending on positioning. A single soldier with such a weapon could halt a knight given the right conditions of battle. It was one of the two reasons the Empire had overwhelming superiority in the early Imperial invasion wars. Of course, by the late stages of the Empire's wars, most countries had started to manufacture and utilize similar items. As a result, after the war ended, the initial version, although somewhat expensive, became a common weapon for lower mercenaries. But at this time, with just my mercenaries, I could deal a critical blow to the Teslan baronet family in the territory war. With his past life's knowledge, such a thought was not far-fetched. No, it's still problematic to be overly optimistic. It was possible that Hammer might not succeed in creating the repeating crossbow, or even if he did, the mercenaries might not be able to use it properly, or it might take time. Still, since he had already entrusted the task to Hammer and Kai, there was nothing more he could do. So, I need to prepare another contingency plan. In anticipation of the worst-case scenario, where the mercenaries fail to fulfill their roles, he needed another plan of action. For that, Logan sought out his father once more. "Do you wish to participate in the Knight Order's training?" "Yes, I do." Logan's expression was firm, his gaze unwavering. However, his father, Patrick, who looked at his son with an expressionless gaze, gave an unexpected response. "I heard rumors that the abandoned South Manor has become the young lord's playground." "Excuse me? You've renovated the lodging, filled the storage with all kinds of strange things, and even placed mercenaries there. I understand you are living there now. Why not train there instead?" "It's just that those mercenaries are merely low level, and the real power of our family and kingdom lies in the Knight Order, doesn't it? I would like to experience what it truly means to be a genuine knight by training with the Order." He was embarrassed to say it himself, but he had carefully chosen words that would please his father. "I recognize your strength, but joining the Knight Order might inconvenience the knights. Hence, you won't receive any special treatment. Are you prepared to be treated like a new recruit?" It was only natural that he received a positive response. "Of course." Logan nodded readily. "Your lordship has been informed. However, are you sure you'll be fine without special treatment?" "Absolutely." Heinkel, the captain of the McLean Knight Order, didn't look pleased despite the prompt response and the unexpected formal address from such a truant. Still, how can I not be mindful, even if told not to give special treatment? After all, he was the master's son, and recent events had not fostered goodwill among the knights. If only he'd said to treat him kindly, my heart would have been more at ease. The middle-aged knight with sprinkles of gray amid his brown hair felt as if those grays were multiplying in real time as he clenched his head. But as if reading his mind, the lump of trouble before him said something that appealed to him. 1 week. If I fall behind even once in the Knight Order's training over the week, I will consider it as if it never happened and leave on my own accord. Agreed. Heinkel inwardly pledged at that moment. The intensity of the Knight Order's training will triple for the next week. His fists clenched naturally. If this is simply a performance to look good, you will regret it, young lord. He could almost hear the screams of the regular knights, but Heinkel was already burning with enthusiasm. However, Logan was not joining the training simply to improve his reputation. Either way, the main force of the family is the Knight Order. I need to win their hearts, whatever it takes. In the worst-case scenario, if the weapon he was preparing did not meet the timelines or the desired level, Logan was prepared to join the Knight Order and actively head to the front line himself. Even if his force was not up to his father's standards, he was confident that he was better than most knights. So now I must build rapport by rolling with them. This was also crucial for Logan's personal training. I will now focus on improving my martial prowess. The Force Core learned through the Divine Sword vision could grow through mere meditation and not just physical training. but at its core, it was about the Force. Physical training was the most important study. Therefore, formal training with the Night Order would also greatly benefit him. Logan hoped this would become another variant in his plans. However, his resolve brought a tempest upon the unfortunate knights. Starting today, young Lord Logan will join our Night Order's training. Excuse me? What? What did you say? Did I hear that right? The young lord is training? Murmurs rose. In the early morning, Heinkel's words set off a tremendous ripple among the gathered MacLean knights. As Patrick feared, it was not in a good direction. That fool? He beat Dominin and now looks down on knighthood? There's a rumor that the young lord has lost his mind. Is it true? So what? Our training will become easier. Don't be silly. You know the captain, right? It will only get worse. As if confirming their words, Heinkel added with a sinister smile, So I've added a new training regimen for today. Oh no, Captain, that's too much. Ah, I knew it would be like this. Damn it. Despite the intense opposition, Heinkel cleanly ignored everyone. I trust that you, gentlemen, will take pride in being knights. Surely no one wishes to embarrass me in front of the young lord, huh? Understanding the hidden meaning of his words, the knights all shared a grin. Let's suffer together. How long will the young lord last? I bet on 3 days. I give him 2 days. Then 1 day for me? Half a day. Is that too harsh? Nah, he might turn back immediately. They chuckled and scoffed, but the sound of their laughter didn't last even half a day. The beginning of the unimaginable training was horse lifting, not horse riding, but literally lifting horses while running. This insane exercise, unfamiliar even to the knights, soon erupted with screams from all around. Ah! The horses, drugged to be unconscious, weighed at least 5 times the knight's weight. The ordeal of carrying such a beast on their shoulders while running through the woods was an ordeal worthy of screams, even for Force users. Even more infuriating to the knights starting this improbable feat was the sight of the instigator of this training. How is he so fast? Isn't that weird? He's that fool, right? Just a madman, huh? The one who initiated this grueling training was running ahead of them all. Their teeth gritted in the attempt to catch up, but the gap only widened. Even the intermediate grade Force users, the sergeants acting as instructors, were gaping at Logan. Among them, the one most flabbergasted was Heinkel, the captain who concocted this training. Does this make any sense? What the... He had designed the training to expedite the young lord's failure, yet there was Logan sweating. Yes, but smiling, while the following knights grimaced. It looked as though the ones falling behind would be the regular knights if this continued. Anxious, he watched until a knight began to stagger with a groan. Such a disgrace. Forgetting the unreasonable nature of the training he devised, Heinkel glared at the knight about to fall. However, he couldn't just stop now that he had started. Elevating his force, Heinkel bellowed loud enough to echo through the mountains. Everyone, halt! At his command, the knights all breathed a sigh of relief and collapsed where they stood. We'll take a 10-minute break. Ah! As the knights groaned, Heinkel casually asked Logan, My lord, how are you holding up? It must be tough, right? Expecting an answer implying difficulty, Heinkel planned to use it as an excuse to lower the intensity before the knights showed too much strain. Oh, I can manage. Of course, considering the What? Fantastic training. Indeed, training with the Night Order is quite stimulating. What? The very person who thought up this absurd training could not hide his shock. The knights listening nearby looked at Logan with the expression reserved for the completely insane, but Logan was serious.